valid and approved by the state or recognized by the state. Now they're not even in a position to say that what we've got is quote valid or reliable, even though their psychometricians will say it's valid because it's aligned to the the college and career ready standards. We're not sure it's reliable yet. So what they've done is they've gone through what they call a bookmarking process. And just to draw it out for you, they'll take a scattergram of all the kids' scores, just, wherever they are, so all the scores across the state, and they'll force, if you will, bookmarks. They'll say, well, this many kids didn't perform, this many kids did, this many kids, and so they'll force a bookmark, just like the old-fashioned bell curve, to say, this is the what do they call it? Yeah, but they don't use that word now. They actually have a better word for it. Developing proficiency. It's elements of proficiency. Yeah. Supermaster proficiency, highly proficient, developing proficient, not yet. They're softer, better words, not as harsh, and they're trying to avoid the bell curve, but you can't psychometrically because they don't know how to do a bookmark otherwise. So basically they're in the bookmark phase. So Jeannie and I went to a state conference where the bookmarked places of how many people are passing or proficient or their degrees of proficiency. I wish I could remember the language. I'll get it. And the board happily adopted what is now going to prove at the state averages with these dots across Arizona. Looks like 60% of our kids are here or below. Mm-hmm. Isn't that right? Yeah, it was 50 or 60, but yeah, it was a high number. It was a high number. Being not proficient, essentially. So the baseline, if you will, is we're talking about English Americans. Okay. Oh, okay. It's okay. It's the New Arizona Merit cut scores. Okay. So the state has adopted what this cut score will be for this year, what this cut score will be, and so on. So they've adopted what will be highly proficient, developing proficient. There were two other kind of cool words that were, like below proficient. So Creighton's like between 60% of the students are between proficient and highly proficient and below. This is the state of Arizona only. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. That's okay. Good. I'm glad you asked. So 60% of Arizona is between proficient and highly proficient and below. They're essentially underneath meets. So like, for what was it? Falls far below approaches. So like if we were to just use that to be able to put it in terms that we all understand, but 60% of our kids were approaching what falls far below, essentially. Oh, yeah. So we're not statewide. Statewide. Yeah, 60% of our kids aren't even meeting standards in both math and reading. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So in other words, what that is telling you is that their bell curve for real was here. Mm-hmm. And that's because they chose to put a bookmark here and here, not arbitrarily, but because here's where the bulk of the kids performed. So they brought teachers together, and the teachers said, we can live with, we can't live with. This is where a lot of the kids are, but we want our kids to be here. So it makes sense they would err on the side of a low baseline so we could all learn the new standards and the new tests and have somewhere up to go. It's a totally political, social, understandable move, which is.
The standards have been there for 5 years. The test is a new one. But the question I have, and this is standard 6, right?
Yeah, it is.
Is the conversations on these standards are going to continue.
Yes.
And the governor has not really been definitive on where he wants to go. What's your analysis of the state board? And do you anticipate this target is moving, or is it kind of set?
I think.
And we're not going to hold you to anything.
No, I'm
curious, like your evaluation.
I used to do this for a living. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I gave the board this information and said, here's what we recommend. Having worked with psychometricians from around the nation and around the state. And so this is exactly socially, politically where I would expect a board to be, and I don't see them super on the conservative or super on the liberal side, if you will. I think they're at a very reasonable place. So
Even with the new appointments?
even with the new appointments, I did not feel that this was politically mined data. I felt this was very, what?
It was collaborative.
It seemed very psychometrically sound to me.
Fascinating.
But that being said, the proof in the pudding for your question is in the second year analysis. Because that's when the play can happen. So if you err on the side of more kids not passing or being proficient, it looks good because you can go up, which is what people want to do. We want to go up. It feels good to go up. So there's going to be a very interesting decision-making point almost next year when the second year comes in and we go, oh, were these right? So the second year we have to go through this really in a way again. They're declaring this as the benchmarks.
Okay.
But I know when we did AIMS, we had to do it twice. Because we had to recalibrate, because what happened was the people brought to the table then to create the test were the AP teachers and the IB teachers and the advanced teachers, because the perception was if we bring those people to the table, that higher standards will be set. Well, then there was just it had a funny effect, as you can imagine, because if you're coached so high standards, then the memory of that group is about the type of students that they're working with in classes where kids are selected to get. Does that make sense? So they had to recalibrate the test for the average Arizona kid.
Well, then how did the standards get so low? If that's who they brought in to develop. Because the understanding, or at least the rhetoric, is that the Arizona standards were not as rigorous as the Common Core. And that the Common Core standards are much more rigorous. Is that not true? Because I know there's a different field.
Testing and standards sometimes aren't always the same thing.
Got it. Okay.
Good question, though. So if the standard is you're going to memorize the colors on the table, and then I'm going to test you on the memory of the colors on the table, and then we have to calibrate on your memory capacity versus how might you use these colors, what can you do with them, and grow something from these colors. The rigor of application and what they call the DOK, depth of knowledge, is higher in the new standards as far as Bloom's taxonomy of recall, comprehension, application, analysis, and evaluation. Whereas the test and aims, if you were to study what was the level of questioning,
So
they were all
lower
comprehension.
order.
Yeah, they were 1 or 2 DOK.
Yeah, and it's hard to test in multiple choice DOK 3 or 4.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what we're going through right now as a growing pain in the state. It's a wonderful problem because it's the right problem, but the testing is going to be an interesting ground pegging square hole, in my opinion, because we have to, the only way to really test the masses well without artificial intelligence is multiple choice, and that's what the psychometrician's like. So we have I would say 65, 70% of the test is still
Because portfolio, you're just
Multiple
in terms of aggregating the data, is that the rub? Because I've heard in other conversations on evaluation, not just these tests, but what about a portfolio? I don't even know.
Presentation and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or having written responses and, but that's, then somebody's got to grade those. So if every single question is a written response with justification for the answer, it won't be November, it'll be, next summer that we get the test scores from last year.
so expensive
Yeah.
for the state to have that level of it's not Scantron just looking at bubbles,
Even
which
with
is
Ames,
cheaper.
even with Ames writing, it was
6
it
traits.
was about a minute and a half each grader would give to each written response. So that 5-paragraph essay, you look at the intro, check maybe something in the middle, check out the conclusion. Okay, that's a 5. You learn how to do those grades really quick.
So there's flaws inherently in all testing, but that's not our job today to try to outthink or outtest the state. I think we just have to embrace where the state is and move forward. And so the things that are within our control are in accepting where the state is, what weight or priority do you want to put on that as a measure for the district's definition of success
Okay, and we can identify maybe some other areas where we might want to say these are the ones that we value.
Yeah. So what I might encourage is just if you looked on page 2 of your exhibit, you've got a variety of examples on page 2 and 3 of things you've used recently. So currently, if I've got this right, the present assessment data that students succeed or expect growth on grade level pre and post assessments, that's something we still do in this district. We use Galileo. So we can still do a pre and a post growth. I don't know what the magic number would be. I don't know if 2% growth is good or 22% or 82%. I just don't know the magic number. So I can come back to you with a recommendation.
Yeah.
But these might be the right numbers.
So pre and post assessments, these are district created, correct?
With Galileo. Galileo is has greater reliability, they claim, to the state standards. I have heard and worked with several districts who are not sure what their results have meant since the new alignment to alleged alignment to Arizona Merit samples, because all they had were samples. Are you following me okay? Because this is technical stuff, but it doesn't have to be that difficult. In other words, Galileo was doing everything they could to align to Ames right before Ames ended. Now they needed to update the benchmarks assessment that we purchased from them, as did many other districts. The use of their data, when we got it back for 4 schools that we were piloting with Galileo versus the other schools who used our created ones, our results looked better. But I don't know if they were. I don't know. Maybe we wrote the questions too easy. Same thing with Galileo. Maybe they wrote the questions too hard. We don't know because we're still trying to throw a dart at a target that we're not sure where it's landing. It's still aligned with things. So. No, it's saying it's aligned to the new blueprint, if you will, for the state. Yeah, it has changed. And so you don't know the reliability until you have 2 to 3 years worth of data. You don't until you can kind of modify the trend. So it's imperfect, just the best we've got while we're developing it. And statewide, this is going on. Peoria was not happy with what they seemed to feel their results were showing through the use of Galileo. That's not a put down of Galileo as a company at all. That's just saying they're going through a normal growing trend. Too low also. I talked to Heather Cruz about that. We found the same thing in what we had, what are called our TAP schools for the ASU grant. We just found a huge disparity. Is Galileo mainly used by most of the districts, or are they? It's a very, very popular one in the state of Arizona. And I do think they're doing the best they can right now to create an assessment that they think will be aligned to the Arizona Merit results, which would serve as a predictor for us. In other words, if I get a 40 on a test, I'm likely to get a 40 on the test when I take the real state test. Or if I get a 40 at the pre-test and I want to grow to get a 60 by the end of the year, then I'm likely to get a 60 on the Arizona Merit test. That's how we use them. Okay. Just checking to make sure my language is the same as your language. So this isn't what the children are at on Galileo. This is beginning of year and end of year. On Galileo, within district. So it's just showing a growth pattern rather than, or a lack of growth pattern, whatever you want to say, rather than a specific score, even though at the end it's probably comparable. So if I was to throw a dart, this is probably the best dart you've got right here, right now, with flaws. This is a good one.
The 1.1s, the reading and math?
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, if the number is a good number, but if I was to throw a dart, that looks about right.
Okay.
I like it.
All right. What about?
What I don't know is if it's a real predictor for Arizona Merit. We won't know that until November. But we're doing it for growth patterns. We're doing it for growth patterns. So in the assessment world, so this is the bell curve, right? In the assessment world, we call this the J curve, which is exactly what this is asking, which is if a kid takes the test and gets a 40, it's a pre-test. It gets a 60 in the post-test, there was growth. So that's called a J,
Yeah.
a J curve, not a bell, forcing
Mhm.
the middle of the road.
So how does this compare to, I haven't looked at this stuff for years, but I remember the state was talking a lot about the Colorado growth model and looking at kids of similar circumstances and projecting and mapping out growth in a peer group across the state.
Yeah.
Because that to me is interesting in terms of what would be reasonable benchmarks for growth for our community based against the similar circumstances.
Right, so the Colorado growth model is looking at this is for you. You're gonna like this.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a tree comparison model. So let's just say we got, the sequoia tree that starts here.
Art-wise, okay.
Yeah, it's good symbolism, and the TAP model uses this too at ASU. So they find all the kids that are the sequoias or whatever, and they want to go, well, did the sequoias only grow this much? And maybe that's a normal tipping point for them. But did the maple or the oak tree grow, whoa, this much, and why did they go up so differently? Or what would we expect this kid to do? And they kind of stayed the same, or they went up a moderate amount, or just went up a moderate amount. So now you're looking at, if you will,
It's equity.
it's an equity
Yeah,
model.
yeah.
That's the Colorado model.
So can we, because I remember this is like Rebecca Gal 2 jobs ago, right? Always talking about this, proposing something in Arizona. This is, I think she was at the Charter Association before she went to governor's office, before she went to Maine. So do we have anything like that here? Or can our scores be plugged in through Galileo to get this type of data?
So what this requires, if I remember correctly, and we could bring Tyson in for a deeper conversation on this, my best expertise on this is what you have to do is you have to study each child.
Yeah.
So by the time you study each child and you get all the Gini type learners or all the Donna type learners, the Gini type learners, we would expect to see this type of growth. The Donna type learners, we'd expect to see this type of growth, because Donna needs academic vocabulary, whereas Gini needs more, analysis information. So you're trying to guess the type of learner that we are. It's good, sophisticated stuff.
Yeah, so
I
I'm
think
not
if you go
proposing
go in that direction.
to propose. I wasn't proposing necessarily we create one. I was thinking Arizona had something like this, like Colorado.
Well, to my understanding, when we use for the purposes of school labelings for letter grades, student growth percentiles, I talked about student growth percentiles, and it's basically that same descriptive picture. And that has been a factor in prior years because because it's been required by law. So we've built that has been built into the model at the state level. We can't do it because we don't have multiple years of data.
Because the reset with merit, easy merit. Okay.
Right. So it is built into Arizona.
It's kind of like what depends on the kid in this district. Let's go there.
Yeah.
It's the 18-year plan.
80.
It's the right idea.
Right,
It's
really.
totally right 8-year.
Great 2020.
Right, there's my vision. It's the right idea,
Okay.
in my experience. You following me? Oh, yes, Colorado.
What stipulations do they use for theirs? Are you questionable to that? Because, I mean, what Donna was saying is studying each child and kind of looking at where they are.
I think it's just an investment by the state on more data for their children where they can plot them all across their data systems. I don't know. In Arizona, we've never invested in it.
Well, when you say groupings, how are they grouped by socioeconomic status? Are they grouped by race or ethnicity? Like, that's the thing I would be curious, because because I think that would be really interesting to, if you live in a house where the average, annual income is $15,000 or less, how much, what's the growth level there compared to somebody whose parents make $115,000,
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't remember, I don't remember, but in the TAP model, when we did the tree-to-tree comparison, do you remember how the trees were identified?
No, they just labeled them student A, B, C, and D, and what they were indicating is that, each child has a different growth pattern, and here's the expectation, and how many of them reached it, and then how many of them went about it, how many of them didn't get there.
So it's like it's a prediction that, the Genie learner's gonna go this far, the Donna learner's gonna go this far. It was a
But it's not
prediction.
even on, ethnicity or socioeconomic backgrounds or anything like that, it's a type of learning you do.
But it's also starting at where you're at, and in 3 years where here you can go in this, and so you're being compared against similar kids and not against. It seemed like a fairer.
At least philosophically, it's in the right direction as a growth model.
So I like that type of stuff
Yeah.
for this. I don't know what that looks like.
I do remember Eric talking about it though in some presentations.
Whenever I played the video,
Yeah.
for drawing,
Yeah.
it was not as good as this one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. You can have this.
It's talking about it.
But since we don't have the capability,
Yeah.
it's very good.
So what I like these, I like these. What so I want to call out what's not here is this is just math and reading, and I know everyone is responsible for math and reading, but how I want to know, I would like to see some plan to measure this for the other disciplines, especially if we do care about guaranteeing that our promoting children, our promoting students are literate in more than one language. And I threw up a goal on under global citizenship, right? They're capable of changing the world politically, socially, economically. And I was a social studies teacher, and I felt that my stuff was not valued ever. So what are we going? I would like to have some sort of conversation about what that might look like to ensure that those things happen. And especially what happened in my school setting, and this was obviously not Creighton, but push comes to shove, and then we're not having B3 social studies anymore. And I left teaching because that school didn't want to do social studies for kids because they just needed more reading and math. And I don't want us to be that.
And I think about the manageability of the portfolio approach, and the manageability of the product, process, content approach. The stuff that we learned in the 80s about how kids could show what they know is not test specific. So to manage, 6,500 kids work and count on the right reliability without it just being my teacher and my mom loved it, so we've made progress. It's an awkward thing to measure.
Yeah, so what about?
When I first came to Gateway, there was a file cabinet with all of these students' names on it, and all these different files, and and you could pull one out, and I was like, oh, and it
Sample work.
Portfolios. I was like, what are these? And they were like, oh, we used to do portfolios as our, how we would measure students, and the portfolio would follow them around from grade to grade to grade. So it feels like the pendulum is swinging again.
It is, and that was very difficult to manage, and often teachers didn't look at it really. So the use of it was hard to gauge, to calibrate, if you want it to be numerical.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're ever, in any evaluation, it's ever going to be absolute. We talked about trying to be objective, but there is inherent subjectivity in evaluation. But I think there is value in identifying proxy measures. So if we're not going to, we're not going to get an absolute, did this kid learn their civics standards or something like that. I'm wondering if there's something we can do that, me as a board member, I feel confident that our kids are getting their civic education, which to me is critical. College and career readiness, that's great. They also, I want them to know not just the institutions, the political institutions, but how do you work those institutions? I was is there some sort of, maybe it doesn't have to even manifest here, but I want to see these portfolios. I want to see these demonstrations or celebrations of their projects. I don't know what it looks like. I just don't want to get lost. band is easy, right? And music, like you can come to a production. Like, I want to see those things.
Art.
I don't know if it necessarily lives here, but I'm just calling it out that those things
I love
care
that we're
about.
bringing it up.
I care about
Because
these things.
it's gonna shape the way our teachers hear what matters. And what they've heard for the last 2 decades is test scores matter.
Mhm.
So what happened in the classroom was we began to become test prep institutions. And so if we want to change that paradigm, we need to change what we inspect.
Mhm.
So, you know, the first one works for me, but it's quite conventional and
Mhm.
feels objective as best as we've got. Feels okay to me. It's comfortable, 20 years of comfort. But if we want to change what we expect, we're going to need to inspect something differently, and it is not going to be easy. It is going to be fun. It's just not going to be easy.
This, I believe, is student achievement. My opinion is the most objective of the evaluation for its numbers. But I'm not for over testing the children. Right now with number 1 and 2, that's 4 tests in a year that have to be done, plus other things, you know, the state tests and all that.
Mhm.
And number 1.3 right there, you're dealing with the Azella for the foreign language. English not being their primary language. That's another test. And I don't want to add on more tests to the child, just for numbers, to get to a number
Mhm.
of where they fall.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, at Zello, we don't really have a choice, for sure, right?
Right.
The state doesn't allow us to.
Right.
But I do agree. I mean, especially, you know, I think we're still doing CFAs here, and as a teacher, I mean, who knows, it could be done differently, but I know that when I was here, the focus was on those CFAs, and that was it. It was very narrow, and I'm sure that they've revamped them, but I still don't see the value in a weekly or biweekly tests. I don't see the value in the benchmarks. I mean, I know that it helps us project, right? Like which kids are gonna fall below, but I mean, like, I feel like it just, as a teacher, it takes days and days and days and days out of what you really need to be doing in the classroom. And it ends up kind of ruining education for kids. And they're like, oh, it's school, I don't wanna be there.
Yeah, so let me bring up this then, right? Like in terms of proxies, if we're not like absolutes and stuff, this is math reading. And I mentioned this 2 weeks ago and a half at our board meeting, but through the research from Ron Ferguson at Harvard on tripod surveys, supposedly there is a strong correlation with student learning if you survey students, and it has to be in a scientific way. It's not, like, I'm not sure that our surveys are set up that way. I don't know why parent surveys are part of this section. I can understand why, but I don't know if that's what I like, but they can set up these,
Probably because we were mimicking the teacher model.
maybe, they can set up these questions on these 7 C's, and it generates, like, kids actually know if their teachers have high expectations in their learning, and that they're measuring care, control, clarify, challenging, captivating, conferring, consolidating. The questions are scientifically generated, they're differentiated for grade level, and supposedly there's a strong correlation with student learning. I know that.
Well, like, is it like an efficacy? Like, I know the difference that I make in my learning is because, and therefore I do.
I've seen some different examples. I know I was at a conference with Dr. Lugo when the teacher evaluation stuff was being rolled out. Former superintendent Hugenthal was super excited about this. I know, I think, again, superintendents Jeff Smith and Roger Freeman piloted this in their districts. I don't know how it's not the same type of surveys we've offered in the past. But to me, this measures more than just these tests. Like, it does measure, my teacher cares about me. My teacher challenges me. My teacher has high expectations for me. And I'd love for us to look at that, because it seems to be, and there's research that it's a strong proxy, and it gets a more comprehensive idea. But of course, this would be, I don't know how intensive, but time and resource intensive. But it seems like a decent model especially when we don't know what this easy merit is gonna work out.
Would that be more for teacher evaluation rather than superintendent?
That's what it was for. I think that I'm not worried about the teacher evaluation piece. We have something, we're gonna get recommendations on what we need to do with it. But I think this is another way of looking at a more well-rounded perspective of how effective a teacher is. And I think that for us, that means starting with superintendent.
Want to chime in?
So we did look into the cost, and I have the PowerPoint that we presented to the board. I think it was 2012 or 11, somewhere around there. If I recall correctly, it's based on number of students. So the cost at that time was estimated between $38,000 and $45,000. Now there are public domain questions that you see in the evaluation that are right now attributed to the principal's evaluation and the superintendent's evaluation, that's section 1, yet it does not attribute to the teacher. So, and we do have that ability to link those surveys directly to the teacher. I do have the survey questions if you'd like to review them. They are the same ones that are used for the Arizona Department of Education framework on teacher evaluation.
Okay. I'd love to look at them.
Would you like me to make copies? I have them.
Sure. I don't know if we need them right now, but I think there's value. I just want to share, I think there's value in survey data for this piece if we're asking the right questions. And I'm hoping it's beyond just math and reading. We're creating a loving environment, a culture conducive for learning.
I've seen this all over the walls. I've just seen this all over the walls. So I don't have a firm offer to hand you. I just don't. I don't have one clean because I can't quite tell between objective and subjective, perception, action, portfolio, multiple disciplines, to develop a comprehensive or more dimensioned assessment in and of itself might be a goal. That the effort is progress to have work beyond the development of it might be
the benchmark
worthy.
might be develop the plan year 1, like establish a baseline year 2.
No, that's where my head is right now.
Yeah. I would love
This is
for
big
us
work.
to look beyond reading and
This is
math.
stuff we could sell and make millions of dollars on if we did it.
And if we can take that
Good
money
goal.
and
Yeah.
pay teachers more,
Yes,
great, let's do it,
exactly. Let's come up with this.
right?
I
Keep
think
the
we're out.
business operations.
We're gonna
Sounds
create
good,
the
right?
best assessment and sell it, and then pay teachers more.
There you go. So it wouldn't be at this time even, a thought process for, the evaluation per se. It wouldn't be that we would be having that in.
One of your options is to hold harmless this section
Yeah,
until the state's more clear,
Right.
or until the district develops something that's more aligned with where you want to go curricularly.
right,
But if we're using Galileo as a proxy,
right.
we have that.
We have that.
Yeah.
It is a beginning and a mid.
I mean, we
And-
start with where we're at, right? But I still think we put aspirational ideas to get to the place where we want to measure more things.
So
Without more assessments.
1, 1, and
In
1,
a
and 1,
differently
2,
creative way.
we basically agree on. So, then,
So is there, we're not voting, we're just getting a sense of, for the document I bring back to you, you'd like to see 1.1 back on the document. Keep it, okay. And we're gonna hold harmless 1.2. Because we're gonna take that one.
I'm just getting numbers because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
1, 2.
No, I'm down here, I know what you did. So take off the district label for now.
Well, for
We
now,
can
there's
recreate this
no,
each year.
Well, there are no labels.
yeah, so for
Yeah.
now what happened is we just redistributed those points.
Mhm.
So I think it maybe still stays for now, I don't know. But there was no points, so we can always put it back in when they get the labels, so I think we can
The
take
more
it
the
out.
state grows, the more the district grows, the more we can finesse this, but
Yeah.
for surviving this year, for this conversation that we have in June,
Yeah,
you wanna look at 1.1, not have 1.2 this year.
right,
Is that fair?
that's right,
Okay,
because there's nothing, there won't be any.
we can still do reclassification, 1.3 is perfectly doable.
Yeah.
You like?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna keep 1.3. And there was some hesitancy on survey with maybe the goal being, maybe we move that goal to a development goal, or as a it's so awkward because this is a
Well,
student
this is student
achievement.
achievement, so that's why, like, if we're using student survey data, it should be correlated with student achievement, like the tripod survey is, or something similar.
So establish, you know, I'm
Because
looking at the staff
otherwise-
right now, establish a proxy-like correlate of student survey, parent surveys that indicate student success. That was terrible.
Is that best thing, would that be how a child perceives or a family perceives
It's like an
Success.
efficacy model in my mind, but I'm not
Right,
sure I'm saying the same thing that I'm hearing.
efficacy on the part of the child? the teacher?
There is correlation in the research to the child's self-efficacy with their performance. So I see myself as successful. I see myself as hard. I know hard work makes a difference versus I'm born smart. That's the philosophy of efficacy. So if I'm born smart, or Amy was born smart, that's why she makes A's. I don't know how to make A's because I'm not smart like she is. But if I say, hey, Amy works hard, so if I work hard, I get the A's or whatever, that's an efficacy model. But I don't know if that's what you're saying.
Well, this is, so I'm happy to share this. There's other language and publications on this, but the title of this graph I'm looking at, students perceive clear differences among teachers. So these are the percentages of students agreeing with each statement. So under care, like the big topic is, my teacher seems to know if something is bothering me.
Oh, I see.
Control, my
Your
classmates
surveys are-
behave the way the teacher wants them to. So we're measuring the love, the environment that's conducive for learning. Clarify, my teacher knows when the class understands. Challenge, in this class, we learn to correct our mistakes. Captivate, I like the way we learn in this class. Confer, my teacher wants us to share our thoughts. Consolidate, the comments I get help me know how to improve. And it's not just one question, they offer several questions under each one to try and get that
Okay.
correlation.
Right.
So, and they're asked in a specific way. Third graders get the questions differently than fifth graders and eighth graders. Supposedly, you can even do this with correlations in kindergarten.
So,
But apparently, this model costs a lot of money. Maybe Jay can find some for us. Or we can maybe create our own. I don't know, but we're not psychometricians. Maybe you are. But
Not this job, I'm not.
yeah, but this model's been developed now for over a decade, and
Well, it would give us,
They're great.
it would give us an opportunity to add teacher voice here. Like, which I'm not sure why necessarily it was missing, but it would be nice to,
In your packet, so you have the presentation. If you flip beyond that, you'll see the student question, and you'll notice that they're very similar, if not exact, because those are the public domain questions. Because public funds were used to develop the tripod survey, so those are for free.
this isn't that much off.
perfect. So this might be,
Those are currently what we use now.
I mean, these might have come.
oh, so these
from
are the
this.
surveys.
These are the surveys that are attributed to the principal evaluation, the superintendent evaluation that you see on there, and they do not link to the teacher's evaluation at this time.
Okay,
So it's already.
so this
This
is
is the
this,
document.
when did we start doing this?
It's 2 years ago? 2 years.
Great,
Years.
love it. Alright, so if this is what we're doing, I want to keep doing it.
Quick question, so I see that you have the student and the parent surveys examples here. Do you have access to the teacher survey?
There is not, this is to measure the effect of the teacher.
Okay, I was wondering, because it says here, teacher surveys, pedagogy, student-teacher relations, and working conditions.
No, that's what, we don't have that one. The ones that we have are the ones that are used to measure the teacher's effect on the student in the classroom.
So I guess my question is, would we add teacher surveys to, would it be prudent to add teacher surveys to this evaluation tool? Or
I mean, for me, the purpose of this
principals?
section is student achievement, and so the reason why I brought up the students is I had learned of this research that showed a correlation.
Okay.
So if there is something like that with teacher surveys, parent surveys, that might fit for student achievement section for me, but I don't know that parent surveys, although are important, I don't know if they fit here. I think that might come under community engagement or something.
And the teacher survey that we currently use is the TEL survey.
Oh, that's right.
And that is not
Oh, that-
tied to any evaluations at this point.
That would be organized.
That we use one
Yeah.
two. We have last year's results as well.
Yeah, so like parent surveys, I think are also important. I just don't know if they fit in this section. But if we're asking these questions, I definitely think they fit in this section.
Yeah, I think they fit this.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's not, they are community, but more important, they're a period of job based on their schools. And if they're not satisfied with the schools, our attendance hurts. So we get more feedback that's very easy to utilize.
So we're comfortable keeping 1.4 in as is.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically we said, hold on 1.2, but keep 1.1, 1.3, and 1.4. And we want to introduce the idea of developing assessments as a normal, growing, aggressive, progressive organization that mirror the values we have for creative and critical innovative learning that don't exist yet.
Global citizenship.
Global citizenship. The more progressive goals, we want to help develop ways to measure, but we don't have it in place yet.
Yeah, which is fine because if we have a goal area, you'll give us other things. We know it's being developed.
And isn't Biltmore starting to test the foreign language?
Yes. Okay, so they're assessing Spanish language acquisition in the high students using a pre and post measure.
Oh.
Last year was the first year, so the parents would get a little summary report at the end of the year showing that growth. That sort of
So as we grow that second language program.
We'll want to
that'll be
formalize
something-
that
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
Okay. You okay with holding it for now, or do you want to put it in now?
I'm okay with holding it.
Okay, but we can still report on it.
Yes. we
Yeah.
can.
That wasn't as hard as I thought. I thought it was gonna be harder.
We're easy.
Oh, yeah, you're. Turn the camera off for a minute. This is good, this is really good, it was very informative, as a new person, really. Because I do bring a variety of perspectives to the table on this, and this is really helpful, I think this is very thorough. All right, so let me summarize where we are. Okay, so we have two more major points to consider. And that would be, we're gonna look at the summative evaluation sheet, which is the first page, and see what tweaks we wanna consider there. What we determined with the student achievement piece is we're keeping 3 of the 4 components that already exist. We're not adding anything new, but we will go through natural organizational development phases to create better tools. Processes and timeline components we're pretty okay with. I think we'll tweak it a little bit. District goals, we moved in on 3, they might turn into 5. I'll have the leadership team work with me to craft some of that, to ricochet back what you set up here, and bring those back to you September 1st, but we landed on some 3 key areas. The learning, the attractiveness and the enrollment, and the community engagement or parent engagement piece. The 6 standards, we agreed that the indicators should be listed but not rated individually, and that maybe we would look at a 360 model for surveying people to help us decide how we're doing or how your superintendent's doing. And we didn't get to the how we're doing part. So we'll fit that in after we take a look at the summative front sheet. Does that work? Everybody okay with that? All right. You got that got the after lunch stuff going on, or you need some caffeine, sugar? Okay.
I'll make it, I promise.
Okay. Just watching your eyes glaze over. This is easy work, guys. You can do this. All right. So let's take a look at the front page. Okay. So in the past, you have had student achievement at 45%. It sounds like there's a story there to align with the 35 plus 10% of the teachers. Intuitively, that feels like the predominant one.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly why, because I'm pretty sure that this came from some of the work that we did, and I'm pretty sure that that was one of the things that we noticed is that it didn't, why are our teachers being, subjected to this kind of,
And not everybody.
and not everybody else. So that's
The alignment
exactly
key.
why. Yeah.
So I'm at peace with that as a.
Good.
Okay,
Weren't we gonna tweak that or change that?
We can.
we can.
But if we tweak it for her, do we need to tweak it for everyone?
Well, that would come later
Yeah.
through a recommendation from superintendent. So maybe.
And I'm looking at Susan because we just adopted a new model. Right? Look at this squirrel in the park. We're talking about the 45%.
Right there, yeah.
So legally, you were saying that we can go down to 33.
To 33, and
For teachers, for superintendent's different though, right?
superintendent,
We
you
don't,
can
we do
do.
whatever we want.
I know, but we wanted to align it, we wanted it to be the same.
So, okay, so I see where you're going. Where if we lower it, we would lower it to maybe 33 and a little more because of the teachers.
Right.
Got it.
And our contracts allow us to change the teacher evaluation throughout the year if needed. So this would be a change in the evaluation should you need to do so or want to.
My recommendation at this juncture would be to stay aligned. And it would be to look at it to maybe reduce the percentage overall if we think the state's messed up a little bit. But I'm having faith right now in the things I'm
They
seeing.
never mess with that.
Never. For the record, Hilda, did you get Donna Young comment? Yeah, that was Donna Young.
Tell me one time they messed up on you.
So at this juncture, I would say we stick with the 45% to align with the teacher practices, but that we look at the lowering of the percentage over the year in case we put too much weight.
When would you look at it?
Probably January, as we look at maybe
I would say
March.
that can be a recommendation. I don't know if we're like.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the question is, do we want to do that? I say that if we start at 45, like it's the first year still. Let's just see where we're at in the year. And then when we do this conversation annually, so we can make the tweaks, then we can maybe talk about that for next year. I wouldn't want to like use it by individual year when we look at that.
Do you feel that it needs to be changed now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it's the beginning of the year, and I feel like because we're not sure how the state's doing these assessments, and we're just not sure, I feel like it should be lowered, and if we think we need to raise it again for next year, because, yeah, the state came up with really good ways to give us
But we're not
assessments.
looking at the state labels at this point. We're doing 1.11
Which is
and 1.12, which is in-house. And then we're looking at Excella, so we're not looking at the state's ranking at this point.
That's a good
We're
point.
looking at how the students are doing, and we're measuring growth of our students and of our students only. So
So it is.
why
it is
would
growth,
why do we need the state in here?
I got you. Yeah.
when we do insert state data,
It is purely growth and not achievement, right?
that's where you want to go. It's not in there at all right
Not
now,
as-
but that's where you're recommending we go when we do insert state data, if we insert the state data.
Well, I think I like the growth for sure, but I think there's value in having both. It's just a matter of what that looks like. But I think we'd wait until we get there.
I think we
Yeah.
need a second year's worth of data to
Yeah.
watch whatever the trajectory is. Here's what I expect is gonna happen. I think we're gonna get numbers that are gonna feel bad. I just think across the state, there's gonna be a lot of feel bad stuff, and everybody has to kind of, buck up and say, it's the first year. And then we look at the second year, and we say, okay, what's the trajectory here, and where are we messing up on not teaching to the standards? Then we'll know more, really, the third year. And that's the best trajectory, yeah. But thank you, I think what you were trying to do was protect from what might be flawed data. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, so section 1, 45%. Okay, and I'm not going with points yet, because we kind of messed with the points.
Yeah,
Right.
the percents
Okay.
are the more important thing.
Okay, we can backload the points, right?
Yeah.
If we,
Because right now it equals 830, that's weird.
it's a weird number, yeah. So we're crossing off the points and we're sticking with percentages, but we might reinsert points if that helps.
Why can't 1 point equal 1%, and then it would be 100 every time?
Yeah, we'll have to, let me backload it after I know what everything ends up being, and then I'll show you how it adds up after I play around with it a little bit. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Goal achievement, so that's 35% at this juncture. Does that feel right to everybody? If those 3 to 5 goals were achieved to whatever degree, 35% of the evaluation?
My personal opinion, and I hate to go back 2 steps after we made 1 step forward, I think 5 goals is too much. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I believe 5 goals would be too much.
One of the ways to maybe address that is to use language like will develop, is making progress on, in a 3-year plan will make this much gain. And then that helps you mediate the largeness of these goals.
And plus
Yeah, I
there's
don't
so
want
many
to say you
crossovers
up.
within those 5 goals
you.
that they all, it's like it would be like a 5-legged stool, really, like you definitely need,
Yeah.
there's a component of each of those, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like-
yeah, I agree, but I
5
like the
is-
language idea, yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we had the benchmarks in the first place. So last year, right? One of them was create and begin implementing the plan. So I think for some of these, it will be develop a plan, or something.
Yeah.
It's the first year.
Yeah, that feels right to me.
Yeah.
Annette, where are you? You okay with that? Okay.
Okay, so to your other question, on the goal achievement at 35%. So I feel that the goals that we set up here should be in support, driving toward the student achievement piece. I already think that this stuff, although important, is not necessary for the performance point. So I have 2 ideas. One would just be 55% for the goal achievement, and then 0 points for the ISLIC stuff, or 45, 45, and then the balance for the ISLIC standards.
But wait a second,
But I prefer to keep student achievement and goal achievement. Those are
The biggies.
for performance, for the performance pay. I'd like to keep those there. We can keep the evaluation stuff, and that would be more just for feedback and discussion, but there's no pay implications.
The one thing that we talked about when we talked about the ISLIC standards though was the idea that it's an opportunity for principals and teachers and staff and whoever else to kind of,
360.
yeah, so I actually feel, that's the one place where staff has a bit of a voice here, and some
Get the feedback from it.
yeah. So I'm not necessarily, it doesn't have to be 15% for me, but I would like to keep, and I agree, like what you said earlier about this being, the standards, what you do, and then this is where the,
Bonus.
exactly. So I don't necessarily need for it to be like 15%, but I do think it's kind of important to keep it in there as part of that bonus because you're actually being able to measure.
So what point? So like, is it 45, 45, 10? Is it just the way it is? I'm fine. I said my piece, whatever you all decide, I won't.
And then real quick before I answer that, so the overall consideration of standards, are we just eliminating that altogether? Was that the general consensus?
We can. I think it's.
So what I heard was the lumping of 3 and 4 together so that the consideration of standards has a place for open-ended narrative under each standard. And you would have the indicators there for your use, but not for your measure by stand indicator, because sometimes it wasn't irrelevant. And that you would, I have another one, hold on. Oh, and you would have the survey data as part of the help to say, oh, okay, they see her as doing this, we didn't see it. It wasn't observable to the 4 or 5 of us, but they saw it, or they're saying it's not happening and we thought it was.
Yeah.
So, you can say there's discrepancy between the board satisfaction and the teacher satisfaction.
Having described it like that, I think it's good the way it is.
45, 35, 20, because I would lump 3 and 4 together.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do one.
All right, but good job, we can end now. Oh, I'm sorry. That was a really good idea, Jimmy. That's exactly, in fact, what we'll do is we'll start over. So the proposal on the table is 45, 35, 20, clumping section 3, 4, and 1.
Or it sounds to me, Carl, like you put more value on the goal achievement, like you feel like that should be a higher percentage.
Well, I feel like those things they're only there to support and create that student achievement environment, but they're also like different and valuable. I just think in terms of performance pay, because the evaluation has multiple purposes. In terms of performance pay, I would put the points there. I think there's some value in the process stuff for some performance, but ultimately, I don't know that that's that much. But I'm not really.
Well,
I'm not going to really argue.
For a minute.
Yeah, but you're trying to feedback too, Carter.
But we don't have to. We don't drop it. We can still keep it. It just doesn't necessarily generate the points. There's still conversation.
Right.
It's still a.
If we're saying this is like base pay, we're still putting 20% would be a lot to say, except for the feedback. I mean, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But 20% would be a lot to, I'd say, this is what we expect you to do already.
So let's just say for a minute that I overspend the district's budget, and it would be on me, because I brought it to you and I recommended your approval, and I put you into bankruptcy. I mean, that's like serious.
Yeah.
Or what if the other way, let's go the other way and say, through efficiencies and maximizing human resources, we have yielded $2 million more for raises. That's pretty serious, good stuff too.
Yeah.
So it could go either way, okay? So somewhere in there is a place to say, job well done, or boy, you really messed up, as a piece of feedback. So where does that live if
I
it's,
think that I'm good,
Just the
having
way.
said that, just the way it is. But,
Well,
either
It's
change it
45,
3 or
4
5
would be combined to 20.
Yeah.
45, 35, and 20.
You don't think 45, 45, 10?
or 40, 40, 20?
No, I feel
You want
like
to keep it
just-
45?
I think it's
45 for sure.
45 for sure.
45, 35, 20.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. I will bring that back to you for your further consideration and use. Okay, so we have an interesting new piece now when you look at the compensation above base pay as per GCO. It must be the policy.
Yeah.
And I don't have that one.
Evaluation.
Overall evaluation policy. Okay, good. Thank you for that.
You're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah, we are gonna have to backload a point system. You want me just to play with that one
Yeah.
and just bring you a backloaded perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep it rigorous and ambitious, but feasible.
Yeah, that's totally right. Okay, got it. I'm just gonna backload
When
from
it
the
is
45.
here, I just can't do the math, you know, it's just.
Well, it's broken down.
830.
This is a percentage of this.
I know, but the these things over here, but
That's out of the 30.
All right, so
Okay, I-
Jay, I'm gonna wanna work with you on helping create, what would be the backloaded percentage into points from the 3 major areas.
Yeah.
You'll help me
Well,
with
the
that.
points are, I mean, that would just be a percentage from the percentile, right?
100, it'd be 45, 35, 20.
No, I'm just saying like,
Oh.
you calculate these points and then out of 100%, you're in the 95 percentile, you still get the 15%. I don't know that.
Well, and plus you have
The
a
points would just
contract
be-
difference from what the contract, your previous
Perfect.
contract
Got it.
changed. Yeah. So we'll have to align it to the contract too.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I think we.
It's a different contract.
already-
Well, and the way I would advise putting it in there is 100%, not 15. In other words, you say you'll get 100% of your performance pay.
I like that.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
you'll get 80% of your performance pay.
Oh.
You get 60% of your performance pay,
Yeah.
not of your pay.
I got it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do it of the performance pay. God bless you.
Yeah, that's how it is for teachers, right? You know, the district has like, this is the most you can get, and then each
Yeah,
school site
yeah.
and A, B,
Yeah.
C teacher, depending on what class category they're in.
Would understand that better too. Truly.
I know, right?
It is.
So, you know, if the grand total, let's just say for the B, that it is $100, and you say, well, you know, you really met 80% of what we wanted, you get 80%, yeah. Much more, instead of all this breakdown, right? Yeah, no, I get where this one was going, because the intended contribution was of the pay.
Right.
But that, you can say of the pay for performance, 100%, or 80%, or whatever you want to say.
Right.
All right, I'll create Jay and I will work on that. Right, Jay?
Yes.
Good answer.
He hasn't started working yet.
So
Yeah, yes, he has. We've been on TV 3 times this week.
So I did want to highlight from our current exhibit, we had like the standards as 3 and then overall consideration section 4. But before we even get into the standards, there was this category called general responsibilities,
Oh, right.
which
Let's
is
go there.
kind of like a
Catch all.
overall
I forgot
consideration.
about that one.
But there's,
Yeah,
it just.
I have it under section 3, you're right.
It's the general responsibilities plus the standards. Which to me, like, we can morph that with, either keep it as is or
Okay,
in addition.
Section 3 or is this?
It is section 3, it's the first part of section 3, after the directions.
can you say a page number?
Yeah, 12 of 27.
Yeah.
So when we're done, it's gonna be 40 pages.
No, I'm bringing it back at 11. Triple dog dare me. You want it down to 11?
I don't want.
Depends on the size of font.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I
I
can
don't want-
Remember, it's old.
Font forward is down to 2 pages.
14 fonts.
Yeah. Okay, so I heard you, overall, this might just be an introductory statement with overall.
With overall.
Okay, so keep
So it's just
overall,
a few,
Not
one
point.
fewer section, it's just more.
So it gets
One.
moved to the
fewer.
section 4, this.
Yeah, well, 3 is gonna get more than 4. We're
Right,
gonna
okay.
be combined, so.
So it's right here, if it matters. And this is kind of a role clarification, the rating system's introduced, then there's this general responsibility section, which gives you kind of the, we're so happy Donna's in the district, and she's been a pleasure to work with. Right?
So Jet Power suggested.
I thought that, I put that out there.
Eh?
Okay.
That's part of it?
Yeah, now it is. Did you get that?
They already knew that before you
I'm
invited
very happy with the conversation as far as simplifying and clarifying, but honoring all the attributes that went into this hard work of this document. How are you doing with this? This is, I mean, I know I'm a recipient, if you will, but I feel tremendous comfort in the shifts that we've made together.
Like I was saying earlier to Carl, like, you know, yeah, the previous board did put this together because we felt like the old instrument was just really kind of terrible. And so the fact that we're you know, it's a living document. So the fact that we're looking at it now, I don't have any hurt feelings. I won't have any next year. And if, when the new board, you know,
Things change.
yeah, exactly. So I
And you
think
gotta change your instrument as.
Yeah.
just like
everything
teaching
changes.
is a
Yeah.
self-reflective practice, being on the board, we should be self-reflective as well. So.
I mean, I really liked the model, the new one that we inherited, because it wasn't on the board when this was adopted, but I actually have enjoyed having now ownership.
Right.
This is more like, we're not just marketing like a good tool, but now like I have ownership in this document, not just because I signed up for the board, but because I'm helping create it. So I appreciate us all working together to create this and
I
own it.
just thought it was so cumbersome and, it needed to be simplified for those of us who don't have a PhD.
Do you think we did
And
that?
not only,
You think we did?
Yeah, it makes, it somewhat makes more sense. It's not trying to impress anyone, it's trying to evaluate.
Well, and I think also if it's simplified, it's going, I mean, the way it was before, it was very time consuming to do it as a board member. And, you know, by the time you get to the end of it, you're kind of tired and not sure you're doing it right. And that's how I always felt. I wasn't sure I was doing it right. So, yeah, that's kind of weird.
You're getting, yeah.
Did you want to add anything about your reflection on how this is done so far?
Me?
Yes.
It's your turn.
Yeah, I think it's gone fine. Yeah, I think that's been great. And I would imagine if we'd update it again next year, it will just be, yeah, much easier each year, yeah. So.
All right, so we said we wanted to talk about board self-evaluation in concert with this, and we were hoping that we could end at 3 for those of you who are committed. I see no hurt feelings if we end early.
Yeah, but I just wanted to acknowledge in our agenda, the next one was the strategic plan.
It was blended and woven, so the goal
Got it.
setting practice, that was intended as a reference, not to write the strategic plan,
Yeah, no,
but to do what we did.
perfect.
Are you okay with that?
I am.
Anybody want to go more or deeper into the strategic plan at this juncture?
I just want to say that it's a great draft, and I like there are a lot of good elements that we can continue to build on.
Yeah, I like it too. What is the
I
plan
just
for
wanted the
the,
public space to say that, Eric.
for the, yeah, I think it's
Again.
really good too.
So Eric was kind of sidebarring with me when we were putting dots up on those sheets and said, this is a perfect segue for where we're going next. And I would love for him to comment a little more on, the thoughts about where we're going next. He and I and the team will collaborate. I think the executive team will pick this up as a new executive team and massage it with you. And I think we'll do a town council with a lot of stakeholders at the table to say, did we get it right? My hunch is we're going to rethink the vision statement because there's a funny feeling in the air about it. And we might land back on that vision statement, but we need to land on it. So what else was a compliment to the thoughts you had about next steps?
Well, definitely as we look through and we think about the work that's been done, a couple of things come to mind. In creating those audacious goals, we weren't thinking so much in terms of vision. We were just thinking about that, that being the best in the world at something. And now that we've taken that through a process and we're now as a board and the leadership team connected on these ideas, now we'll really be able to go in and evaluate those and great vision, I think, can come out of that. So that's really where we left off with the work of the team last year, was knowing that we were at a point where we needed to go back and say, what is that vision if all these great things actually happen? What does that say about us and where we are? So the town council, we are building a coalition of the idea that came out of the last couple of meetings, was the idea of a Creighton coalition. So we think about the idea of shopping local, learning local, connecting with your community. There's so many wonderful businesses and community organizations that don't even know potentially that they're part of the Creighton community. So we want to engage them, bring them in, and put these ideas out there and say, does this speak to what your vision is or what you want your local school community to be? So that's kind of the working thoughts for that event. We've got, that team, a strategic planning team is great. It's got every school classified, certified people. It's a little light on the community side though, and that is where we want to pick up. So.
Yeah, and I just want to telecast that the governing board and individuals of the board want to be a part of this. And so let me it's a reminder, like, engage us. Like,
Well,
when
I think
can we
that-
be involved in these things?
I think that Hilda has been putting it on board docs too, like when the strategic planning meetings, at least last year, I think she put them, right? Yeah. And just about anything that was happening. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
So, the engagement piece, I think, in terms of governance and policy and community engagement, I think the town hall will be our next big, massaging day or half day with people for input on did we get it right? And what else might it be? And the local thing is new to me today. I like that. I saw Jay and the team over there going, oh, that's a cool idea. But we have yet to engage with it really.
Right.
So we'll weave a bigger engagement piece, and I can hear that already in your conversation. I think the other piece that's missing and that we need to really think through is the did we get it right tour with the schools and the teachers and the staff. Because, while they're representatives, it's not typical that they get a place to share and get ideas. They might do a few with their buddies in the parking lot or at lunchtime, but it's not deep. And so maybe a tour at the sites about here's where we are in our work. Did we get it right? So at the sites as well.
What do you see, how you see the town hall?
I see, I actually have a scratch piece of paper started on that. Civic leaders, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, a handful of the existing strategic plan folks who really have a history that could maybe sit at each respective table, facilitating the did we get it right questions and getting the input from the tables, having people move tables to have a purposeful engagement at each table with each goal. And I think we'll get some amazing ideas from the more external stakeholders that way.
Is this different from community council? Is this in addition to community council? Or is it like a?
It is different.
Okay.
We brought some of the work to community council, I think, on 2 occasions last year, but it's a separate body that has been working.
Eric, when you did it with the community council last time, was it a presentation or an opportunity for input or
We
both?
used it as an input opportunity. The questions out there, we asked community council. Goals for the future where we collected all that.
So wait, so let me be clear here. So we're talking about the strategic planning committee, and then there's town hall, and then there's community council. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're talking about 3 separate audiences. So town hall is not gonna, okay.
I
gotcha.
see town hall though having a handful of strategic planning people there to
Right.
serve as facilitators around the various tables.
Okay,
With kind of purposeful exercises at each table
Mhm.
to help engage.
Good.
Did that help?
Very much.
Okay. Everybody good? Okay. All right. Now, pull out of your packets, please, BAA. Evaluation of the school board and board self-evaluation. So we'll do a little reading exercise to get familiar with this one. I did not make it go through for you. This is your exhibit. And I don't know whether you've ever done this or not, or if it's been kind of one of those dusty policies that sat in the book and sometimes we forget to pull out. So I don't know where you are. Just being perfectly, you don't have it?
it's in your packet.
It looks like that,
It's before all of the colored papers.
right? Okay, absolutely. You got it? Oh, there's, no?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's all right.
We did. I really don't.
Yeah, we did it right here.
I don't think we got it.
It's the basic one.
There you are. Everybody got it? BAA? Okay. So I'll just read after if you don't mind. The board may, which is, there's the word right there. That's probably dusty. The word may helps it, allows it to be dusty. The board may meet at least annually, not later than October 30th, which is funny when you use the word may. For the purpose of appraising, it is. For the purpose of appraising its functioning as a board and to elevate board performance. The appraisal plan approved by the board will be developed by the board president working with the superintendent. And instead, we're doing it this way today. Evaluation instruments for board operation may be used in the process. The superintendent and others who regularly work with the board may be asked to participate in all or a portion of the appraisal. The may is really light language. It's probably ASBA written, right? Yeah. So we may want to tighten the language if we choose to, but we may choose to tighten our own behavior and not worry about the policy. Areas of board operations and relationships that may be appropriate, to consider during the evaluation of governing board procedures may include, but are not limited to. And then you see the classic, the meetings, the decision-making processes, policy development and implementation, board district goal setting, curriculum instruction management, fiscal management, plant management.
Some of these are not, it's not our responsibility, it's your responsibility. School plant.
Yeah, so these are just
I know,
names.
these are mays, but we shouldn't even go in there, for that.
Yeah, the word management's probably bugging you.
Yeah,
That's what's bugging you,
I
right?
guess,
You
I
know,
guess.
However, but we are the ones who vote on, whether it's in consent or whatever,
But we don't drive. She drives, she brings it to us, we agree or disagree.
So when you think about your fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers as elected officials, you have a role in ensuring that, to ask questions of me.
Right.
To demand reports or, I'm being on the harsh side of my language right now, but you want to make sure the money, that your taxpayers are happy.
Right.
And your constituents are satisfied with what's happening here for their kids.
So if basically we can evaluate ourselves if we want to by October on these types of topics. Maybe. But what I'm recognizing here though, we have flexibility to do what we want.
Right.
This actually looks familiar though. Did we do this?
We've always done it
Past.
in the past.
Last year, when ASBA did it for you guys, and remember it was that online survey,
Yeah.
but it was these same
Yes.
exact questions
Okay.
that were in that online survey.
Okay.
That you guys did.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
When, with the workshops I've gone to and stuff like that, the one that really impressed me and made an impact was, okay, we have all 6 of us at the table will be developing the superintendent's evaluation as a group. It's a consensus. It's not her alone. It's not us alone. And the school district that was doing it said, well, they were evaluating monthly, but it wasn't a formal evaluation. It was informal evaluation of the superintendent. But they also did the board monthly. I believe, in my opinion, we should, if we're going to meet every quarter, every 6 months, how long, to go over with the superintendent on how she is doing, we should also do a self-evaluation at that time, rather than have once a year. I don't think, past years, first year they did this and I was on the board, I'm like, what the heck's going on? Let's give ourselves a pat in the back and have a beer.
That's right.
It was more like that. It was, well, we did this and we did that, and I'm thinking we're supposed to, weren't we? But it's very loosely done. I think we need a little more structure in the evaluation of the board also. And if we're going to give an informal, but an evaluation of Dr. Lewis in 6 months, in quarterly, whatever we decide, we should also take the time to do ourselves. And it shouldn't be, well, I think we're great because, you know, you showed up and didn't fall asleep.
Right.
Yeah, if I can,
In the rubric that way.
Yeah, we can put the rubric that way. Jean showed up and she fell asleep, so it doesn't count.
I mean, the opportunity we have, what, we just spent the day talking about we talked about it under the lens of superintendent evaluation, but they're basically our priorities for our district. And I feel our work isn't just about coming and making decisions, it's about these things that we all care about. So I like the idea to tie this to coincide with superintendent evaluation. I do value input from people who come to our board meetings, the people who are impacted by some of our decisions, especially the superintendent, their input on our performance. And what I would like to see is the correlation between our evaluation and those, in terms of the things that we actually are responsible for. Like, we actually had agreement, or we had the process and we came to consensus, or I won't even say consensus, but 3 votes at least on these are the priorities. And I think the evaluation opportunity is more an opportunity to evaluate the board as a whole and not the individuals, because I think individually we bring something different, but at the end of the day, it's how are we functioning as a board. And the last thing I want to throw out there is, we started with calling something like this goals, but that wasn't where we landed. We now call them expectations, and I think where they really fit are kind of like working agreements. But I think that there's maybe some value in incorporating something like this, because these are the things we said we wanted to do as a board. I think there's a role for this in an evaluation type of thing.
Do you have the sublet, Tammy?
It's in your packet.
Oh,
Isn't it?
No, that's the one from the AFD.
I saw that one that you put up from NSBA, that
yeah,
was from Wyoming,
this is
from
from
Larry.
NSBA. And we might have, you know, the guidelines or whatever, but some of this, and I'm not trying to step on anyone's feet present, maybe they're not here. But, you know, it has things for the board and the superintendent. We've done the superintendent, but it has some general stuff that I think is, that I've seen in the past, which I personally don't like. Like, the board's link to the operation of the district is through the superintendent. In other words, she's the boss of the district. We don't try to micromanage her, we don't try to, you know, all that other stuff. And I'm not sure where I should did it. Basically, conflicts of interest. I've seen that in the past on the board. And we should have some kind of rules for conflict of interest. I know it's
Beyond like the legal ones, or
yeah, beyond like the legal
what would
ones.
that look like?
There's some stuff in here, I'd have to find it.
Would
But
it be personnel oriented, vendor oriented?
Because there are state statutes for that kind of stuff,
Right.
right?
I'm trying to think of what else there would be.
well,
I just know we have board policy too,
Yeah.
and like even
You know, like if
when
my,
we engaged Eva as our policy fellow, like that went through Jennifer for legal interpretation of our conflict of interest. So there was like some vetting legally to keep the board clean.
I've seen it kind of really be on the fence on certain things, and no one basically challenged a person. But yeah, so
Can you give an example without
I don't know.
using names? or
No, I
revealing?
am. But I think we should put in something, you know, if you're, you know, I can do a lot of things that are legal, but to me, they're not ethical. And I'm not trying to put in, you know, like the Volstead Act again or anything like that.
here it is, board members will operate in a manner that will avoid actual and apparent conflicts of interest. Copy it, yeah, and so like, I'd rather err on the side of being, totally without question than error where somebody gets caught in something that they shouldn't. So,
Like if I worked for Pearson and was advocating for more standardized testing or something like
yeah,
And we have policy on that.
that would be a very obvious thing. But
So what I think I'm hearing is we should add a question that addresses this, that we can evaluate ourselves on.
Yeah, or maybe it could be when there's an expectation numbers too.
or even that, yeah.
I think that
I
think this covers a lot, and we had already agreed that these were the ones that we liked, and I wonder, like, there is things in here, like, that we operate with a sense of professionalism that we expect from our staff, that we clearly understand our roles as superintendent and governing board, that we ensure the district is run, not because we're running it, but through the evaluation superintendent, which means the superintendent runs it and we just evaluate superintendent. So, like, I think this covers maybe not everything, but a lot of things. But I just feel like we adopted this. We had a couple conversations about it. It's come up throughout the year. But
Is conflict of interest addressed in here? I'm just looking for that.
think
That's
it
the
is.
one that you brought up explicitly.
Yeah,
yeah, not explicit.
and it's not brought up that we do not run the district. We approve the running of the district. The superintendent runs the district.
Yeah, well, that's why, so I thought about that when we were drafting this, and what I wrote was the governing board ensures effective leadership of the district through evaluation of the superintendent, which infers it's we're not running it. All we're doing, our role is really evaluating the superintendent, which is in statute and policy.
That, yeah, but you read that, or you read the board's linked, the operation of the district is through the superintendent, except as otherwise required by law, which tells you it more upfront.
I don't know that I agree with that.
I agree with part, I mean, I feel like that's pretty clear that governing board ensures effective.
So
leadership
are
of
we gonna evaluate ourselves on the expectations?
No, it's through this thing right here, right? I mean,
Well,
that's,
that's our current exhibit.
yeah,
This is what we got from ASBA. Our opportunity here is to talk about when we want to do this, at what frequency, and it sounds like the
You want
proposal
more
was we do it at the same time as the superintendent ones, or some variation. And then the other question is, do we want to use this exhibit? Do we want to change our exhibit? There are many ideas and many ways
I'd
we
like
can
to
go.
add to the exhibit or, basically change it, to have an exhibit. When I mentioned that, we quarterly with, Dr. Lewis, I didn't mean we'd go through each one.
Mhm.
I don't think, or maybe I'm wrong, we won't be, with Dr. Lewis, we won't be going through student achievement and all that other stuff. We won't be going through the instrument piece by piece.
Right.
We're going to be talking for, this is great, maybe you need a little more attention to this part or something like that. We're not going to be
But and I think
evaluating it, and I think we should, we should talk among ourselves, if, well, we did this real great, but I think we need to work on our community input or something like that, whatever.
And I feel like if we do it at the same time, at least there's, and I don't know if the board ever cared about it in the past, but I would appreciate as a board member, I'm speaking on behalf of the entire board, but superintendent, this is where you're at, awesome or not awesome, right? What do you need from us? What are we doing well? What do we need to do differently? And I would say that more just like tell me as a board member, if you all like that, then I think that's, invite that conversation. But
Actually,
until I hear it
two.
from all of you.
I have two things that I was gonna say, and that was one of them. that, have the superintendent as part of our board self-evaluation, have a little something, a blurb, something from the superintendent about us, about what, I think this went well, I think maybe I need this from you, I don't know, more clarification on this or something like that.
Yeah, especially
I
like
think
if we are
that's-
not
It doesn't
reaching.
have to take a lot of your time, just,
Yeah, but I mean, look, sometimes where this breaks down is superintendent may or may not have an idea where the district is going, right? And individuals on the board have many different ideas, and that's the opportunity, like, hey, we're not gonna meet these goals because we're not collaborating. And even if we have different points of view, like, where is the vote? And in our ethics, we said we would agree with whatever the vote is, even if we were on the losing side and not throw tantrums. It says that in different language. But my point would be, this would be an opportunity for Dr. Lewis to help us. How can we be better in supporting the advancements of this? Or, hey, you're doing such a great job. Let me pat you on the back, right? Yes, Jessica, thank you.
nothing more we can
Yeah.
do to make it.
You'll get all your pay for performance.
Great. I want 100%.
100%.
That's right.
The other thing I was gonna say though, and I hate to be the devil's advocate, but I'm going to be, is, if we can't crack this down to one page, maybe max two, I'm not gonna do it, because that's a lot of time for me. I'm already,
On the self-eval?
I mean, we're all on this up and down, all of us are spending a lot of time,
Yeah,
and
but the
I'm just saying-
enormity of the responsibility we have, I think,
Especially if it's once a year, I have no trouble.
I hear you, but I also think the enormity of the responsibilities we have should require us to ask questions from different points of view. In fact,
if I
even,
can do it in 10 minutes, I'll do it.
yeah, but I don't think it's just filling it out. I actually think there is a value in bringing a facilitator in, having this conversation. And I think the most important thing would be, if you look toward the end of what we currently have, synthesizing this. What are our current priority problems that we can address, and what are we going to do about it? Because if we evaluate ourselves, because we don't have to, and we identify that there are some challenges, but we don't actually do anything, then we just wasted all that time. So for me, it's a time issue for sure, but we should commit to doing it for, not just for the policy says we should maybe do it, but because we value the input, the feedback, and we're going to change practices to get to our goals.
If we agendize time on the board agenda for verbal reflection on certain highlighted piece, it might mirror what we want to do with the overall district development and superintendent's evaluation. So it wouldn't have to be, oh, I have to do this on my own by myself, but we're sitting there together for the thing. How are we doing? I don't know if that's a place to do it or not. You don't like that?
Well, I don't want another half-day study session.
No.
No, we
No, I'm
can do
talking
it on
about
our
I'm talking
regular
10 minutes on the dais.
10 minutes is good. 10
But I
minutes is
still, I believe that we should, do our evaluations individually and then have a discussion about it, because I believe that's how it went down the last time we did those, the board evaluations, and if I'm remembering it correctly. And I don't remember if it was an exec session where we were able to discuss it, or if it was out here, but we just kind of looked at outliers and like where we were all agreeing and.
Your
The-
evaluation of all time.
Yeah, right. So what, and again, I think if I'm remembering it right, on things where it was like, everybody said we're exceeding on this. But let's take a look at where we have, just like we do with the superintendent evaluation, let's take a look at the outliers and have a discussion about why there's so many different feelings about this thing that we're doing.
Yeah, the purpose is to just recommunicate, like, where are we? And we don't have to be on the same page, but we should hopefully still be respectful and hear where we're
Right,
coming
and it
from.
might provide you with new insights. If you're sitting here thinking, man, I never know anything about the board, and nobody can, make a complaint or whatever, and then we have a conversation, 4 out of 5 of us say, well, we're doing excellent, and one person says unsatisfactory, then we can say, well, remember this example and that example, so I'm
Yeah,
I'm
I'm just having problems with some of the things for evaluation. Under B, second one down there. The board recognizes that the community expects the first and greatest concern to be in best interest of each and every one of the young people. I'm a young people, without distinction as who they are or what their background may be. Okay, Jeannie, do you recognize the community expects you to do this?
Indeed, I do.
Then it's excellent. Whether we do it or not, it's excellent because it doesn't say
Right.
anything except recognize.
Right.
So we all recognize this. We could be voting completely different, but we recognize it,
But
and
not
we're
everyone
excellent.
recognizes. So you would like to change the language that's more,
I'd like to change a
explicit?
lot of their language, yeah, and add some other things.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to take a crack at that and bring it to the board and we can discuss it?
Sure.
Bring it down to 2 pages.
I mean, it's not very, how long does it take you guys to do it? It's not very long.
It's not
I don't
that long,
understand, yeah.
I don't
But
recall it
it's-
being,
I
it's
would love-
definitely not as long
It's
as
just the
superintendent
idea that,
No way.
you know, if you recognize versus action.
Yeah, and then, I mean, that would be important here too, like where, like how is this observable? Because it's not just for us, like I would hope that we're also asking at the very least our superintendent and cabinet to give us input in writing, or at least in conversation.
Well, why, I mean, could we make it part of this where, I mean, because I would like to hear what the superintendent and members of cabinet have
Yeah.
to say
We can do
about us.
Why
whatever
doesn't,
we want.
why doesn't
Yeah.
everyone take this home
And, yeah,
and make
yeah, I think
notes
that,
and
I think that's a
recommendations?
great idea, because look at board relationships, I hate to keep on picking on you. Number one, G, individual members of the board treat each other members of the board and professional staff with respect during board meetings. But wait, we get in the parking lot, girl.
Yeah.
I don't know how
I
many
also
times
have-
Donna has said that to me, seriously.
I- That also really bothers me. I'm like, no, we should always be, we should not be speaking negatively against each other. We have-
But, you know, it's, I have problems with some of these things.
Semantics for you, it sounds like, you know, the word.
No, it's words that, it's not semantics, it's what it conveys.
And I thought you, I think if you want to make it more objective than subjective, it sounds
No,
like.
it's very objective that we'll treat each other, but it doesn't say anything when we get outside the door and what I can call her.
Well, look, I would love for the opportunity to adapt it, create something that we all like, but more
And
importantly,
it can be a
feel would be
living
valuable.
document just like hers.
So it's, are we
Handling.
agreeing that we'll all maybe take a look at this instrument and make any changes that we feel like, and then are we going to come together?
So how about this, per our policy? If we all took this home, and maybe you, make changes, or maybe you just like, I like this, these are the things I care about. I don't know what the recommendation would be for open meeting, but if it's supposed to be adopted by the board but developed by the president, I'm happy to take the ideas, synthesize them, represent them and say, this part was from Ned, this was from Amy, this is where it looks, what do we think?
Well, then also included in here is the Mesa Public Schools, where they include their strategic initiatives, so we could decide too, is that something that we want to,
Right.
are we gonna take the goals, our goals, and then make them part of our own evaluation? And it's up to us,
Also-
because as of right now, they aren't
I'll
necessarily
have
part of it.
Hilda do this. Some of it is not applicable to Wyoming or someplace.
Yeah, Larry.
Okay, but on the back of there, this is leadership and government. These are district strategic plan too. It seems a lot of school districts do that, not only our state. But yeah, I'd like to put some of this into here also.
And then we have all these other great
Right,
examples too.
and the more examples, the more you can steal.
Mhm.
But I'll have Hilda make copies of this for everyone in their boxes. So
Yeah. And if
And
we
even
can
if we
make,
send it digitally, I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
I know
It's
like
on-
we want to
it's on
make it
It's on board doc.
maybe 1 to 2 pages or something simple. So the more ideas, the better. We'll try and synthesize it. I think there will be a lot of overlap, but I think there will be opportunity for sure to create an evaluation system for us that works for us, that coincides with superintendent evaluation, and that can, in the same concept, be a living document. Obviously, the board can change its policy. I wouldn't say whenever it wants, but every 2 meetings, because it takes 2 readings. But this is just an exhibit even, so we don't even have to change the policies. But yes, I think we should all put down ideas, what we want. Hilda, is it best for them to send it to you, or can they send it to me?
Or
It's up to you and
Yeah, I just don't want to violate open meeting law, but it says developed by the president. But obviously will be for the board. So if you're okay with it, I'd love for you to send it to me and I'll synthesize it.
I'm sending it right now.
Great.
That's mine. It's not on there.
So we didn't put a date on there, but I know we're all fried a little. That's what I'm
I'm
sensing.
right with you, I'm all aware.
Yeah.
Squirrels on the wall.
Sorry, I can look at it.
Yeah. So let's see here. Our next board meeting is 9/1. Like what if I got your input a week from 9/1, 9/8, and that would give me a week's lead time to turn it around by 9/15.
The mid-September.
What's that?
Oh, yeah. when was this?
It's the 10th, 11th, 12th.
So it's like. that's-
Right after that, the following Tuesday.
It's, if you're looking at days to work with it.
You can do it in between sessions.
I mean, I can work on it. It's fine. It's just a matter of when do you want to give me, I just want us to have a deadline. So I already done this. You got some time.
9/8 is plenty of time.
Plenty of time. Okay, send me ideas by 9/8. I'll synthesize it and repropose this at a board meeting in public where we can agree on the model.
And I think the policy could be tightened up a little bit too. I mean, I think any board
So here,
should be evaluating itself at least annually. I mean,
so here's the thing, like, if we already agree on that, we don't have to change the policy. If we're trying to tie the hands of the future boards, we can change the policy, but also know if they don't believe in it, they can change it right back.
yeah.
So like, my question for us to think about is if it works for us, how urgent is it to do that? It's not a big deal, but it
So
should,
you're gonna be working with Dr. Lewis on this?
I will.
Great.
And I will work on the 360 component that might mirror the quarterly or every 4 months or whenever we decide to do it. Conversations that formalize how we are doing on the standards together, or the support I need, or the support the district needs, or the support the community may need. It's, right now, we'd all get stars on our foreheads because of this past week, as far as just sending a great message to the community, about thank you so much for your support with the bonds and the override. So it's just amazing how to celebrate your school. Couldn't have had better help on that.
Future agenda, you ready to move on here? Okay, so I already suggested at the 9/15 meeting, we will visit the board self-evaluation exhibit. And any other future agenda items?
I'd like to bring up it's not renaming, but it's naming again, the Bailey Wing of Mackin. I'd like to be done officially. I don't believe it was done when it was rebuilt by the last board.
Like a dedication?
It doesn't have to be fancy, nothing, just get it officially that it's the Bailey Wing, and I'll go into it when we have the reason why.
Okay. And then when should we expect your draft?
It's my expectation that I'll be able to bring it, what day is today? The
9/22, 8/22. I'm trying to give us an alert.
I think I can have a decent draft here on the first.
Awesome. Any other future agenda items? I move to adjourn. I guess I adjourn the meeting. I don't know if we have to take a
You don't
vote.
have to take.
At
No action.
2:30, 15 minutes early than that.
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
That was good.